So today we're going to be looking at doing some quick self-portraits, and I say quick because we want to get this done in one class period and try out some of the different types of paint in our paint center that we have. So what you need to remember when you're doing a self-portrait is that it's easiest to start with that nice oval shape of your head, right? And then when we're looking at proportions, did you know your eyes are about halfway down your head? I'm going to round it a little bit because our heads are rounded, so about halfway down I draw a line. Your eyes, you can actually fit, when you look at proportions and ratios, you can fit 5 of your eyes across your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you kind of divvy up your page, you'll be able to see that a little bit. And most eyes are that nice almond or football shape. You might have to look in the mirror to see what your eye shape is. Some are a little bit wider, some are a little bit more narrow, depending on your ethnicity. And then you'll look, and your pupils and your irises actually come from underneath the lid at the top and touch the bottom lid at the bottom. So you never really see this top part unless you're shocked and in surprise. And then your pupils go in the middle of those circles. I always add an extra little circle in there to remind myself that I need to add a reflection of light. And there would be my eyes. Then the next thing that goes in is your nose. Your nose is about halfway between your eyes and your chin. So I could do another little line like that. That's where my nose is going to go. And most noses have a little roundness here and a little roundness here. And this depends, the sharpness and angles depend on your type of nose. So if you have a more rounded nose, it'll be more with the rounded shape. If you have a pointier nose, then it might be a little bit more narrow when you draw your pointier nose in. I'll erase that in a minute. And then of course your nose connects up and over your eyes to your eyebrows. So you add those pieces in. And then between your nose and your chin, halfway is your mouth. So you notice everything's in halves. Halfway are your eyes, halfway between here and here is your nose, halfway between your nose and your chin is your mouth. And your mouth will line up with that top lip that kind of makes a stretched out M shape if you really look at it. And if you feel it, you've got a muscle on this side, a muscle on this side, goodness, and one here in the middle. Sorry, I record these in the morning at school, so sometimes the morning bell goes off if I get too much into my work. And the bottom lip is just a smile. Okay. Sometimes if you smile really big, or you're older like me, you'll get some little wrinkles in there, a little bit. The other thing you want to remember to put in are your actual eyelids over your eyes. And some of you have some nice eyelashes you might want to show off. A little bit like that. And then you can come down and you can round out your chin. Some people have pointier chins. I have a little bit more rounded chin with a little bit of extra packing on the sides. If I had a few less Starbucks Frappuccinos in the morning, I might be able to get rid of some of that extra fluff in there. And then right here by our eyes, our heads actually narrow just a little bit. So that's when you start adding in some of those outside edges. Your ears, if you look at your neighbor, look at where their ears start. I kid you not, they start at their eyes. You see that? And then how low do their ears go? Yeah, all the way down almost to their mouth, don't they? So when you're drawing just the edges of your ear in, keep that in mind. I'm gonna make mine just a little bit more because my head's kind of tilted in here. So I just do little sides for the ears like that. I'm going to erase some of my stray marks now so that I don't confuse you guys. And all of these tiny little things can be erased before you start painting. In fact, even some of the darker areas where I've drawn, I'm going to back up and erase because I don't want them to show up so much once I start painting, right? I want it to be more paint than drawing for this particular one. So I can lighten the whole thing. I'm just putting my eraser flat and gently pushing to lighten the whole thing. I'm going to dust this off over the trash can real quick. There we go. Okay. And then the next thing I have to add is my hair. This is tricky because a lot of people tend not to put their face straight forward into the mirror when they're looking, so they think their hair only goes here. Your hair comes off the top of your head, so you're going to have to look to see a little bit more maybe what that looks like. So for my hair today, I kind of have it wrapped around the side, and this doesn't have to be perfect. You know, this is something that's kind of new to you guys a little bit, so just do the best you can. That's all we're looking for. Since this is a quick sketch, you shouldn't spend more than 10, maybe 15 minutes on it today. I mean, really, we're just kind of going for a quick quick little details, right? And then I have mine, and I might have earrings on today. And you'll notice your neck. If you feel your neck right now, where it attaches to your head, what do your fingertips touch when you put them up and down against your neck? They touch your ears. So don't make yourself a bobblehead. Your neck does not come out of you like that. You're not an alien or a bobblehead. Your neck actually comes way out here, out of where your ears are. So make sure you get your neck in the right place so you don't look like a bobblehead. So here's the basic outline of me. Now I'm going to start doing some different watercolor things. And again, we're just playing around with watercolors and tempera paints today. So I'm going to quick fill in my hair with one of my brushes. I should be using my watercolor brush. There we go. And you'll notice I don't ever push with my watercolor brush. I only pull the paint. That keeps the bristles nice and sharp. That's the same for any of our brushes this year. If you want to keep them nice and sharp for their edges and their points, you should only pull them, which might mean you have to turn your paper once in a while, right? Now, I don't have super blonde hair, so what else do I need to do? I need to add some other colors in there so it doesn't stay super blonde. I'm going to grab some blue tempera paint cakes. And when you do the tempera paint cakes, you grab water on your brush and you mix it in a circle on here until it starts bringing up the pigment from the paint. That brush is a little too big for my hair. I'm going to grab the smaller brush. And where I want shadows, see how I just dropped that into the watercolor? It's wet on wet and how it spreads. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, and this time I just have water. And I can pull that color and move it around. And again, today is more about playing than it is capturing accurate colors and representation. I want you to get the feel for what happens with the different kinds of paints and how you can mix them. So again, this is a watercolor paint and a tempera paint cake. I can also pick up some of my liquid. This is my liquid tempera paint. And if I go like that, I start an edge and then I get a clean brush, I can add just water to this and bring it out here into my face. This gives it a natural value feel, so I'm going from dark to light, right, to make my face look more rounded. Being careful to go around my eyes, I want to keep those white. See how that gives it a nice rounded look? Lighter areas, darker areas, add more water if you want a lighter area. My other one's still wet up top, so it likes to blend a little. I'm trying to be careful not to blend too much. There we go. I'm going to grab a little bit of watercolor for this ear. And you can see the difference between the orange watercolor and the orange tempera cake, right? Now, I want a little bit of shadow in here, so I'm going to add a little bit of watercolor orange. And all it does is darken it up, right? Because that's where my eyes are. So if you feel right there, if you pinch the bridge of your nose and your eyes, you can feel where there's a dip and where that shadow should be. Remember we said over here it narrows on the edge of our face a little too, so I'm going to add a little there. And if it's not spreading out enough the way I like, I can go back in with just water. I actually kind of rinse my brush off and dry it a bit before I pull it, and I can push and pull those paints around. I can make them go where I want them to. Like that. All right, so there it's starting to look a little bit more like a person. I'm going to go down and do the neck because I didn't do that earlier. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue because there should be a darker shadow under there. And then just water to pull out and over. Add just a smidge of orange. Bring that back around so it doesn't stay too dark. There we go. Now I'm going to move to a thinner brush for my lips. And I think I'll use a red tempera cake for these. Again, you guys can experiment with whichever paints you want for this project today. Do not feel like you have to follow my same lead. And you notice it's still wet, so it's bleeding a little bit. That's okay. Again, we're looking at how you can play with these different paints today, more than I am concerned about how your painting turns out. Add a little bit of a shadow in there. And then I'll work on my eyes. You have to look and see what color your irises are. I always like to start with a little bit of a lighter color and then add the shadows back in. I'm using a smaller brush for this, as you can see. Got a little too much water, so I'm going to pick it up with my brush and actually wipe it off on the edge of my water cup. You could also use a paper towel to wipe it off on the edge, and then add some more blue back in, because I lost the blue on this side a little bit. Go, and then I can go with a little bit darker blue. And you can see where it would be an advantage to you to let some of this dry so you don't get quite so much of the wet on wet spreading. Then I'm going to let those work and dry a little. I might even blend this out just as part of a shadow up here, or maybe some eyeshadow. Oh, work on tightening this up a little bit. And this one's still pretty wet up here. I'll play with that. There we go. And I can always add in some more color highlights in here. So as you can see, our paints really do a bunch of different things. Now if you let this dry for a little bit, you can go back on top of it with colored pencil, chalk pastels, things like that, and you can add in a little bit more detail or dark things where you need them, kind of like that. You can even go back in if you want with skin tones. Be careful they don't smudge. See how it started smudging down there? You want to be careful about that. Give it some more of that roughed in look. Again, this is part of crossing centers over so that you can do some multimedia type techniques. Multimedia just means that you're adding other medias to it. It's multiple media, multiple different types of art tools. I'm going to put my eyebrows in. Like that. And when it dries, I can also go back with Sharpie, colored pencil, or anything else. Of course, you're going to want to put your name on it before it moves to the drying rack. Then make sure you clean up all of your tools, rinse out your brushes, and get them back into the right cups.